Welcome back to the show. And, we were just discussing the differences about what goes on or what went on in the real estate market years ago versus now. And as we went off the air and, we're discussing the differences, they're vast. I mean, it's not just in the lending world. It's in the real estate world. It's at the opportunities people have to buy things. It's at the opportunity people have, the ways people buy it, who they're buying it from. Lorna Willard joins us, owner and managing broker with the Rainier Realty Group. First of all, hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, it's our pleasure, and I'm glad that you could make it in. Let's talk a little bit about this because you've earned a lot of awards. You have the experience. You've won a lot of awards, including the 5-Star Award in Seattle Magazine for the last few years, and 7 consecutive annual top 20 regional awards while at ERA Real Estate. So now You've been in real estate a lot. You were there 7 years ago when things were different. Now here we are in a unique environment still. What are some of the biggest questions that you are hearing?
Well, one thing is that right now our inventory is very low. And that's quite different from a year ago when we were absolutely flooded on the market with REO properties, REO meaning real estate owned. The bank owns them now. The former owners that occupied the property no longer own them. So they've kind of dried up, and that's what I see really different right now.
And so it seems like there's kind of this, that you have the different types of ways you can buy a house, right? I mean, you can buy it from the seller, or you can buy it from the bank, and a lot of your experience is kind of in that, the bank-owned property, which people were always thinking there was this huge amount of inventory. There's going to be hundreds and thousands of bank-owned properties. People were always going to have a chance to go buy. What is the trends in bank-owned properties and real estate-owned properties right now?
Well, it's interesting. When you look at the multiple listing service and you look at the inventory, the short sales, which I would imagine could be explained by another expert, they're really high in inventory, but the bank owns are not. And it's been very difficult to try to track why in the world they aren't here. We were flooded with them. The buyers were like kids in a candy store. There were so many homes. And right now, I've watched my business because I've done 99% of my business in foreclosure sales as the listing agent for the major lenders. And what's happened is it was like somebody turned the faucet off. It didn't trickle away. You'd think as the inventory went away, it just kind of slowly but surely grind down. But no, it just stopped. And so there's a lot of questions that myself and even the asset managers at these large banks are saying, oh my gosh, where did it go? There's still vacant homes out there. You drive through the neighborhoods, you see them with the signs on them. They're still there. Nothing's changed, yet they're not in the inventory. So,
is there any way to actually gauge how many houses are out there that just aren't being sold?
Well, I actually keep on top with a company called Realty Track. And Realty Track is the one that gauges what the inventory is like, where it's coming from, and so forth. So I actually brought some statistics in from the Seattle metro market. And Seattle is, we are in a state called a non-judicial state, which means that we don't have to go to the court every time a house is foreclosed in order to sell it. They actually do a sheriff's deed sale on the county courthouse steps. We are the only state right now who is in an increase in foreclosure rates, which is very surprising considering we're in a decrease in inventory. In fact, in the Seattle area, 1 in every 185 homes is in default, where nationally it's 1 in every 248. I think the inventory has dropped off because it is now taking 383 days for these banks to foreclose on these homes. So a lot of people move out even before the foreclosure is complete. So the vacant homes are still hanging out there.
So it's not, I mean, I guess what I'm saying, are there a lot of bank-owned properties that aren't on the market?
I think there are. They call it shadow inventory, but the banks have been telling myself and others who do the same job like I do, you just wait. It's coming. It's coming. Stay geared up. It's coming.
Yeah.
But it's not coming.
Yeah. Imagine that. Big banks lying to everybody.
It might be. You know, I keep thinking, is the outcome of our presidential race going to change things? I don't know. I don't know what the banks are holding onto these properties for. Maybe the first of the year, and they're trying to keep from having so many homes on the market that the prices continue to go down, down, down. I'm not sure.
So if somebody wants to purchase a bank-owned home, what does that look like? Because maybe there's not a lot out there, but the banks say they are going to come. I guess I would have two questions for you. The first is, traditionally, once they're on the market, how would somebody purchase that, and what's that look like? And the second would be, if you know a house has been foreclosed on, let's say it is your neighbor's house or it's your friend's neighbor's house. You're like, yeah, that house was foreclosed on. I saw the notice on the doors and all these different things. Is there a strategy that somebody can go try to purchase that house from the bank if it's not on the market?
Well, let's take question number one.
Perfect.
Okay. If you're going to buy a house that is bank-owned and it is on the market, it's not a whole lot different than buying your neighbor's house that is owned properly with not a problem. The biggest difference comes in the disclosure situation. Once you have an offer and there's a meeting of the minds as to price and terms, then the bank is going to give the listing agent, like myself, who would then pass it on to the selling agent and the buyer, probably a 10 to 20 page form written by the legal staff of the bank.
Sounds exciting.
Oh, yeah. Well, if
riveting.
Yes, if you are having a hard time sleeping at night, just bring one of these to your bedside. Anyway, but what it does is it basically is a cover your tail for the bank. It says you are buying this as is, where is, don't ask us for anything. You can have an inspection, but it's only for, do you want the house or you don't want the house? It's not to come back with a litany of items that you want to have the bank repair. Sometimes they will, but oftentimes they're just, nope, sorry, if you don't want it, we'll move on to the next buyer.
Sure.
It also states in the as-is clause that once a person purchases and it's closed, it's theirs. Unlike if you bought Joe Blow's house, where if the say the furnace croaked and all the neighbors go, oh yeah, Joe's had a problem with that furnace for 3 years and he sold it to you knowing darn well that thing was going to croak. Not the case with the bank owned. It's like you can choose not to go close, but once you have, it's yours. You've waived all your rights to going back and pursuing.
That when the roof starts leaking and the tarp blows off in the wind, huh?
Yeah. Get a new tarp.
There you go. That's a good fix. We're here with Lorna Willard, owner and managing broker with Rainier Realty Group. Lorna, so it sounds like the transaction piece, finding a house that's bank owned, even financing it and closing is similar. You just kind of you maybe just don't get all the extras, the fixes that you may want. What if there's a house that somebody knows about that's been foreclosed? I mean, because it would seem like that would be the shadow inventory that you might be able to go snatch up before it becomes inventory.
And that's a good question. There's kind of two ways. One is if you know it is before it goes to the sheriff's auction, then an opportunity is there to go do that. But normally a person would have to offer more than what's owed on it to buy it at the sheriff's auction, and believe me, nobody wants to buy it for what's owed on it, because that's probably twice as much as it's worth right now. Sometimes people will pursue who owns the deed and as far as what bank it is and try to contact the bank and so forth. On several occasions, people have come to me and said, oh, I found this house at 123 Main Street, and can you find out how we can buy it? And I go through all my channels. I call my asset managers. I talk to loss mitigation departments, and they all go, until it shows up on our computer system, we can't help you with that, So really running them down is kind of tough.
I mean, it sounds like a big bureaucracy almost of, it can't funnel through, and who knows what has to happen in between the...
Who even knows who owns the darn thing?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll get a house that'll be listed with one bank, and then when we close, it's indeed to a completely different bank. And I had one that took forever to close because there was actually no paperwork that could be run down from Bank A to Bank B, Bank B being the one trying to sign for the sale of this thing. and there's no paper trail. It's like, well, Bank A is on the deed. How can Bank B possibly sign the closing documents on this? And yet it happens every day. So
wow. So just, I mean, you really do have to almost wait for it to filter through the process in order to go purchase the house with the overgrown lawn and the.
Yeah, you really do. And you know, there's liens against these properties. There's utility liens, tax liens, all that. And a buyer doesn't have to really worry about that too much because that all gets taken care of at closing. I'm not saying they shouldn't watch for it, but normally those things get taken care of at closing. It's not nearly as dicey as if you did buy it on the sheriff's steps, and possibly you get to have those encumbrances yourself.
Yeah. Well, Lorna, thanks so much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. And, you know, it's so interesting to just think about the process these banks go through, the fact that sometimes they make it to market and sometimes we're just not sure why they haven't. But it doesn't seem very efficient.
It isn't. In fact, they assigned me one assignment about 3 months ago. Lovely home. Went out there, met with the people that were living in it, did some digging around. These people had not made a payment since 2008. And they were still there, living in a $400,000 home. And it's like, wow.
Sounds like a good deal for them.
Yeah. Wish I didn't have to make my payments. Could stay there for years. But
Yeah.
As it turned out, they had done a loan modification with the lender. It was approved. They started making their payments. The bank didn't take their payments. They kept sending them back, saying you're not paying as much as you should, because they were referring to the original mortgage amount. And these people finally gave up and said, well, we thought you guys said you'd take less. And lo and behold, after I helped these people, the bank came through and said, oop, we goofed. Yep, we did give you a loan modification. In fact, rates are better now. We'll give you a better one now.
Wow.
Yeah, so they got to keep their home. I didn't get a nice listing, but that's okay. And in the long run, the people got to stay in their home. And that's what it's all about.
And rent and mortgage free for 4 years. Not a bad gig. Lorna, thanks so much for joining us. We do have to go to break. We will be right back after these commercials. You're listening to Brashonomics.